Hello, Les Ferdinand. We are Beşiktaş Development Group, an NGO which is linked to Beşiktaş organically with the mission of supporting and developing projects for Beşiktaş. We have been active in the last 20 years developing various projects, but also interviewing and organizing talks with Beşiktaş legends like Gordon Min, Ali Gültiken, Metin Tekin, and Mehmet Özdilek. We have long aspired to have an interview with you in the UK. This has been a dream for us for a while and it has come true. Many thanks again. Me, Halit, and our other member of Beşiktaş Development Group, Gülsün, will also ask some questions. By the way, we reached you via Kadri through your daughter, Laven. Let me start with the questions.
Okay.
You were one of the best football players in the United Kingdom. Can we hear from you about the story until you are transferred to Beşiktaş? How did you become a football player?
First of all, good morning and thanks for having me and arranging this interview. As you said, it's down to my daughter Lauren. You guys managed to get hold of her and she's organised this. So back to the story of how I became a footballer. I think as a kid, I used to play football with my friends and started at school, which then matured into playing non-league football. And it was really funny because it was probably about 12, 13 of us that started playing all together. Slowly but surely it whittled down, and you know, as you get older, then it's 10, then it's 8, then it's 7, then it's 5, then it's 4, then it's 3, until it was only me that was still going. And I just kind of like progressed through the non-league ranks from youth team to reserve football, and then I got into the first team at about the age of 16, 15, 16, I was playing men's football. And I got spotted by Queen's Park Rangers while I was doing that, and then moved to Queen's Park Rangers in 1987, and this was sort of like the back end of a season. So I signed for QPR around about March, April time, so there was only sort of like a few weeks left, a month, 2 months left of the season. Managed to get a couple of games coming off the bench in the first team, and obviously this was all a totally new experience for me, you know, coming from non-league football and all of a sudden you're thrust into the world of professional football. So I had the following season where I didn't really make too much progression. I'd done my first pre-season, had a few injuries, and then the opportunity came through Gordon Mills speaking to...
The second question then, how did you transfer to Beşiktaş?
Right,
exactly.
okay. Sorry, okay, the second question, I nearly rolled it all into one. Second question, how the transfer happened was Gordon Mill was very good friends with the then manager, the late Jim Smith, who was the QPR manager. And Jim Smith had said to Gordon, look, I've got a centre forward here who we believe could go on to be a very good player, but we don't know which way he's going to go at the moment. I spoke to Gordon, travelled from Istanbul to see me, and sitting down with Gordon, he explained the project that he was trying to do at Beşiktaş in terms of trying to win the league and everything else. And I just liked how Gordon came across, to be honest. I didn't know anything about Turkish football, I didn't know anything about Beşiktaş at the time. But the way he spoke so passionately about Beşiktaş and what he wanted to do there, he just convinced me that this was going to be a great opportunity for me. And you know, I say to people now, it was the making of me as a footballer and as a man. It was the first time I'd been away from home on my own. You know, leaving my mum and sister was tough because my mum wasn't well at the time, but she encouraged me to go and do this, and you know, I always say to people it was probably one of the best years of my life.
Fantastic. And what is the place of Beşiktaş in your football life?
It's, you know, people often talk to me about you know, obviously QPR and my time at Newcastle, but I always say to people that, you know, for me, in my heart, Beşiktaş is where it all started. And as I said, it was the making of me as a professional footballer and as a man. So it holds a massive place in my heart. And you know, I still look out for their results and see how they get on. You know, last year wasn't a really good year for us, but in terms of finishing fourth. But you know, I always pay attention to what's going on.
And you played in a total of 32 matches for Beşiktaş. You scored 17 goals and made 10 assists. How do you interpret this statistic? It's a great statistic, I mean.
Yeah,
fantastic statistic.
You know, I'm pleased with my outcome. I mean, years ago they didn't talk about assists, so it was never a thing. But now you mention that if you've played in 32 games and had involvement in 27 goals, that sounds like quite a good return. And like I said, it was my real first foray into playing first team football week in, week out. So I think it was a pretty decent return for my time in Beşiktaş, and like I said, I really enjoyed it.
And which is your most unforgettable match in Beşiktaş? Unforgettable match.
Probably the cup final, the first leg against Fenerbahce.
We always remember.
That would probably be the thing, because you know we ended up winning the trophy, and that was the first sort of like silverware I'd had in my career. So that was kind of like quite a poignant moment for me.
And what are your thoughts on our legendary president Süleyman Seba?
Wow, cool. We called him Başkan at the time, huh?
Yeah, and when did you first meet Süleyman Seba, and what was your favorite feature of Süleyman Seba, and do you have an unforgettable memory about Süleyman Seba? Could you tell about us or Süleyman Seba?
I think the first meeting I had with Mr. Süleyman Seba was on the day I arrived in Turkey. My very first day. We travelled from the airport to I wouldn't say, you know, the clubhouse that Beşiktaş had. We travelled to the clubhouse, and I was staying in a hotel next door to the clubhouse, and we had lunch together. And he welcomed me to Beşiktaş, and it was on that day that Gordon said to me that look, we're going to have a training session in front of all the fans, in front of some of the fans, and he made out like it was just a little thing where, you know, you just go and you have a training session, a few fans turn up to watch. And then we got to the stadium, and the stadium was, I always say to people, I couldn't believe how many people were at the stadium to watch the first day's training and see the new signings. Because I think Mehmet came in at that time, and a couple of Recep came in at the time as well, so there were a few new signings. So, yeah, I remember sort of meeting Mr. Süleyman Seba, us having a conversation. Obviously, his English wasn't that great at the time, but through the interpreter, he welcomed me to Beşiktaş and said he felt it was going to be a good year. So not only was he a good Başkan, he was a sidekick as well, wasn't he? So, yeah, and along the way, I always remember how calm and cool and sophisticated he was. And someone to look up to, a legend of the football club, and went on to be the Başkan, and a very good one at that.
We also interviewed Gordon Mill. Is there anything you would like to convey to him?
Yeah, no, Gordon Mill. You know, people often ask me about managers in my career who've had an influence on my career, and I always say, I think at different times in your life, managers come in and come out and have an effect on you. And obviously, because I played a lot of my career in the Premier League, people talk about the Premier League managers, but I always say I have to mention Gordon Mill, because I don't think without Gordon Mill I'd have got to the levels that I got to in my game. He spent time with me, not just on the training field, but talking to me. You know, he's someone who had experience of playing at the highest level himself, and then got into management. And I remember him saying to me after my first couple of games for Beşiktaş, he said, if you couldn't get in the QPR team, I'm just wondering what kind of strikers they had, because they must be unbelievable, you know. and he just gave me the confidence and spent time with me as a manager, as a human being. He was just excellent and a major driving force in what happened in my career.
Fantastic. Yeah. The slogan, "Come on, Ferdi, it's time," is still ringing in our ears. What does this slogan remind you of when you hear it? How do you feel?
Heidi Ferdi, zamana geldi.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. At the time, I didn't know what it meant, you know. And then some of the boys, some of my players, said to me, you know what this means? I said, no, Zeki, Faz, and all that. Said, and it meant this is your time to go score a goal for us. And so it just gave me a little bit of a boost, you know. And to think that the fans coming from where I come from in terms of not playing much first team football. But now that they were relying on me to score goals, and it just gave me a little bit of a boost and a lift. And whenever I think of that chant, I think of it very, very fondly.
Fantastic. Have you ever visited Turkey after leaving Beşiktaş? Is there anything you miss about Turkey?
Baklava.
Oh,
I lived on. I'm not totally on baklava, but I love the baklava. I loved all of. To be honest, the one thing I always say to people when I went to Turkey, I didn't look for anything that was English. I just immersed myself in the culture. I had a friend called Jan, who unfortunately is not with us anymore, but he looked after me unbelievably well. Radi Zalat, who was the goalkeeper, his wife was an English teacher, so he took me under his wing and he looked after me. And he took me to places, you know, Jan took me to fish restaurants and places that perhaps I wouldn't have gone to because I wouldn't have known about them. Yeah. And I just immersed myself in the culture, in the food and everything, and everything about living in Turkey was fantastic. I never had a problem, never wanted to come back. I actually wanted to stay, but the club wouldn't allow me to. So yeah, baklava is one thing that I still eat and go to. London, my cousin lives in the southeast, and he always brings baklava for me. So it's the one of the things I remember.
Fantastic. Do you follow Turkish football and Super League? What do you think of Beşiktaş right now?
Yeah, I mean, I always look out for their results, Beşiktaş, and obviously the fact that Mourinho's gone there has brought a little bit of something else for us to look at. While I was at QPR, I was sporting director. We had Bryce Samuels, who plays for Fenerbahce now.
Yes.
He was one of our players, so there's a keen interest. I mean, obviously, first and foremost, I look at how Beşiktaş is doing, and then obviously from that you see what the rest of the league is doing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Beşiktaş manager Solskjaer?
I thought he had an unfortunate time at Manchester United, and we've seen a load of managers now go into Manchester United and have an unfortunate time. Probably wasn't given the credence and credibility he deserved while he was there. But that's Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So whenever you go in, whoever you are, you're going to be scrutinised because of what they've won in the past. I think given time, he's shown that he's a very good manager, and I'm sincerely hoping that he can bring some success to Beşiktaş this season.
Yeah. And you came to Beşiktaş at a very young age. You even said, "I came as a child and returned as a man."
Yes.
Are you currently following our young players like Semih and Mustafa? What would be your advice to young players?
I think young players, my advice would be to listen to your coaching staff, to the senior players around you. As you said, I came to Turkey as a young player, and at the time, I suppose I was quite fortunate because I think Turkish football had a high regard for British football at the time. So I was going there, and there was a level of expectation from me. There was a level that the players expected from me, and I'd like to think I got to that level, matched it, and went beyond it. So young players, but that was because I listened to the senior players around me. We had some older players in the team, who would give advice, and I listened to that advice, as well as the manager and the coaches and everyone else that was around, you know. And so, you know, these young players coming through now is the one thing I would say is to keep your feet firmly on the ground. Throughout my career, no matter what happened, that was the one thing I was able to do was keep my feet on the ground and not get carried away with any of it.
Apart from Beşiktaş, you played for clubs like, of course, QPR you're associated with, Newcastle, Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester City, the big teams. Which club or clubs were you feel you were the most successful at? And can you share some unforgettable memories for sports fans?
Yeah, I think QPR would be one of the clubs I was successful at in terms of goal scoring. I think it was 90 goals in 183 games.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the return for such a small club as well, we competed well in the Premier League while we was there. There were some memorable games against Manchester United, goals scored against them. Newcastle obviously springs to mind because, again, that's 50 goals in 84 games or 83 games. And that probably, in terms of my footballing career, was probably the pinnacle, really, because we had a team that was capable of winning the Premier League, and I was there for 2 years. We finished second twice, a little bit like my time at Beşiktaş, really, finished second, but not quite getting across the line. But we had a team that were capable of winning, and, you know, the team I played for at Newcastle was dubbed the Entertainers because we played a brand of football that everybody enjoyed watching.
Characters.
And not only the characters, I think the thing with us at the time was there was always going to be goals in our game.
Okay.
Whether we scored them or teams scored them against us, there was always going to be goals. So, yeah.
And of course, you played for the national team, the England national team. And are there any tournaments or matches you can't forget?
I think making my debut for England, so coming from where I came from, non-league football, going right away to the top, and I think once you get into professional football, you think to yourself, what's the highest possible accolade I could have as a player, and I suppose that's representing your country. And to do that, playing at Wembley, which was iconic as a kid, it's something you dream about. Obviously, you dream about it playing in the FA Cup final, is what we used to see a lot. But in going back and representing the country was something special.
What do you think about the current state of Premier League? And can you compare it to your own era?
The current state of the Premier League. Okay, good question. I find football very different nowadays. I think players in my day, and it's no disrespect to any of the players nowadays, I don't think they're as robust as they were. Sports science has taken a massive, had a massive influence on football in terms of what players do, how they play and how they prepare, how they train. The players nowadays look more like athletes than perhaps in my day, but they don't have the robustness that the players in my day had. And, you know, I had this conversation with someone the other day, and I said, years ago, you'd go to a game on a Saturday morning and you'd look at a pitch and someone would be doing a fitness test, or it'd be rumoured that someone was doing a fitness test. I think nowadays, and I don't know whether that's because there's been such an improvement in medical science or sports science, but players know by Thursday that they're not playing on a Saturday, and I think you've still got 48 hours before that game, and there's lots of treatment that can be had for you to play, but players already know that they're not playing, so they're switched off to the game on the weekend. You know, there's loads of games I turned up on a Saturday thinking I was never going to play, but the physio did some work on me. We go out, we do a fitness test, and although you're limping, because you're in the stadium and the adrenaline starts pumping, all of a sudden you play the game. Yeah, you're sore afterwards, but you play the game. But that doesn't happen anymore. Like I said, by Thursday or Wednesday, you already know that you're not playing on a Saturday. And whether that was good or whether that was bad, I don't know. But like I said, I just don't think the players are as robust as perhaps in my era. Football's still very entertaining, though.
Yes. And if you had the chance to return to the Premier League, which club would you want to play for?
Oh wow, what a great question. What club would I want to play for? Probably Newcastle at this moment in time. I'd still go back to Newcastle. I think, you know, I look around at the moment and most teams don't, you know, struggle for a centre forward that played like how I played at number 9. Everybody, you know, we've got inverted wingers who, you know, right-footed on the left side on the right, left-footed on the right side and the right-footed on the left side, coming in having shots. And I often wonder what came first, the fact that players didn't want to hit the ball anymore, or was it the fact that players just didn't cross the ball? I don't know, but I think as the type of centre forward I was, I thrived off people wanting to cross the ball. And I'll probably look at the team that would cross the ball more, and probably Newcastle more than anyone at the moment.
And you have many personal awards and you know, MB as well. Can you give us some information, you know, outside Wikipedia maybe?
Yeah, no, I suppose you know, yeah, obviously the MB is you know, standing in Buckingham Palace and receiving that award from before he was king, Prince Charles. You look back on your life and you think, I did something I enjoyed all my life. And I was kind of like saying, when I listened to the people that were in the queue before me, there were firemen, there were ambulance people, there was a young kid whose family was in a car crash. He was the only one that survived, and he walked so many miles to get emergency help because they didn't have a phone. And you're listening to all these stories and you're thinking, all I did was play football. I'm being awarded, you know. And then the fireman in front of me said to me, I don't feel worthy of this. I said, you guys have saved lives and this, that and the other. And he said, Les, I've watched you for many years and you've brought joy to thousands of people up and down the country, around the world. Just enjoy it. And that just kind of like changed my perspective of it. And yeah, that's obviously an honour. But probably the biggest honour for me was being voted the PFA Player of the Year in 96, 95, 96 season. Because I think with all due respect to journalists and people that write about football, they have an opinion on football, which we respect. Some of us respect, some of us don't respect, in the way that when your peers vote you as their Player of the Year for that year, I think that's the highest accolade you could ever have as a player, being voted by your peers as their best player that season. And you know what? I didn't realise at the time, but Palais was the one who presented me with my award on the night. So yeah, that was pretty special.
Oh, very special. Yeah. This is a long one, I think, but I can this. After you ended your active football career as a player, you worked as director of football at QPR for a long time. And can you compare being a football player and a director of a club? And what do you think about the management styles, academies and transfer policies of football clubs in Turkey? And what would be your suggestion to Turkish clubs, you know, overall management-wise?
Yeah, okay. So I think most clubs now have sporting directors of football, whatever name you want to put. First of all, I'll answer the question, is there any comparison? No. As a professional footballer, I prepared myself to help my team. But I know I needed to do my job, and my job only. And if I did my job to the best of my ability, I was going to help my team. As a sporting director, you have to help absolutely every single individual in that football club. Not just the players, the staff. You've got to manage upwards, you've got to manage downwards, you've got to manage the whole football club. And yeah, it's tough. You've got to have the right people around you. And it was an enjoyable time. QPR just got relegated from the Premier League, and we had to change things. So it was a really interesting project, and I enjoyed my time there. Unfortunately, we didn't have the success I wanted the club to have, and to try and get the club back to the Premier League. But we had to reduce the wage bill from what it was, from 78 million, and by the time I left, it was at 15 million. So. And to still try and be competitive in the Championship was a tough ask, but we managed to do that. And not only that, we managed to sell a few players as well to bring some income in. So in terms of that, I look at that as a successful period. Although I didn't achieve the goal of getting the team back to the Premier League, we did what we needed to to do in terms of stabilising the club, and hopefully they can move on from there. In terms of the policies in Turkey, I'm not quite sure what they are. Like I said, I know they have sporting directors, and when I was at Beşiktaş years ago, back then they never used to pay transfer fees for players. They used to just this is what Gordon Miller told me the way the system worked. That's changed now, and you're paying big transfer fees for players out of Europe and stuff like that. And in terms of evolving Turkish football, you need to do that. Turkish football has never been afraid of bringing foreign players in to try and improve the league with what they've already got, because they've got some fantastic footballing individuals. So I think it'd be wrong of me to critique what they do, because I don't know deep down what they do in terms of their football.
Thank you. And of course, we know that you are supporting a cause, this prostate cancer charity. Can you give us some information about this charity? And of course, we would like to use this platform to introduce this charity to all our fans through you.
I think it's immensely important that men check themselves. I have a history of prostate cancer in my family, and it's one of the cancers that, if found early enough, there's a cure for it. But a lot of men are too proud and brave and don't want to go through the process. In the process, I think there's been some myths in the past that to be checked for prostate cancer, there's some procedures that they go through that a lot of men don't actually want to go through. But the truth is, it can be signified by just having a blood test. And when you get to the age of 40 and above, every year you need to be checked. And it's about raising awareness and people understanding what this is about. Like I said, I have a history in my family. There's a lot of my friends that have had prostate cancer, and so I get myself checked every year. I have the PSA test every year, which is just a blood test, and it puts my mind at ease. And like I said, it's been a taboo subject in the male world for a long time, and it's something that we need to get away from and make sure we're getting checked, because a lot of lives can be saved just by having this blood test done.
Thank you. And maybe you have a special message for Beşiktaş fans here.
Yes, I always say to everybody, en büyük Beşiktaş başka büyük yok.
Wow. Fantastic.
This is